lot of think time because this happens in the second usually. So just take 5 seconds. What are the key issues, desired outcomes, and actions you see? Just think right now. And now let's adapt. What are the key issues at play here? Yeah, go for it.
The core value I think most of them play is respect and humility and integrity, since they're putting their immediate situation ahead of what they did sign up for, which is closing the achievement gap, which they still have the opportunity to do. Even more so because now they're teaching more students. So it actually can be framed as a positive instead of a negative.
Yep.
And relentless pursuit will need to come and play in order for them to be able to do it.
And just to go back, what did you specifically see or hear that led you to think this is a respect and humility breach or an integrity breach?
It says displeasure. They mention these people need to get it together, putting blame on others. They said the CMA is not helping them. I don't remember other things specifically that indicated that they're totally focused on their situation, not how does that affect the students in the classroom, the person who left.
And I think another piece to that integrity point too is that they're talking to this amongst themselves instead of talking to the school director or their core member advisor. But I think you hit on respect and humility and brought in integrity as well. Any other key issues at play here? Yeah.
I think they really feel like they do not have a partnership with the staff at their school, and perhaps justifiably so. So I think that's something that we need to look into.
Definitely. Any final thoughts on key issues?
I think there's something just to recognize that like they're in a tough situation, and there's definitely something just to acknowledge there.
Excellent. So we've adapted. We're actually now going to do an activity where you're going to pretend to be in the moment with this breach of culture. We're going to work in pairs. One of you will be the school director, the other will be the core member, but just to set us up for success, there's some context. So assume that you have already inquired. So we've adapted, and you've already inquired, and you know what's going on now from their perspective. She's feeling treated less than a partner. They're not getting direct support or strategies, and they don't have any flexibility and lesson plan deadlines, and they're frustrated. So you've inquired. You're going to start the role play, whoever's the school director first, is by reiterating the impact you see that core member's action having on the culture of the school, and then after listening or continuing to go, helping or challenging to see how it plays out. You'll have 5 minutes to actually do the entire role play. There'll be 30 seconds for feedback, and then we'll switch partners. The other person will be the school director. Again, 5 minutes, 30 seconds for feedback. Any questions before we start? Rock and roll. Thank you so much. And again, just to reemphasize that point, that all of this is nascent. This is newly developing, so no stress about not having all the actions that you're going to take. 2 quick things that I want to touch on briefly before we jump to the reactive action. One is that I heard a lot of amazing ideas, and I was like, oh, I wish it was down so I could be taking notes. There are a lot of excellent things that I heard about building that vision, actions that you're going to take. I do know that on both the Chicago team and the Phoenix team, there is a priority for school director collaboration. So take what you have and build on it with everybody else in the room. Maybe there's a way we can actually bring Chicago and Phoenix together with these ideas. The other thing as well is I was talking with Elon, there's 2 sort of trends that come out. There's this like sort of superficial, but not in the normal sense of superficial, but the superficial things you do, like putting a bulletin board up, right? And putting those shout outs. And then there were some people that were saying, I want to make sure that I am extremely on point with my curriculum specialist that first day of the diversity community achievement session when it's introduced, to make sure that we're really hitting on this partnership, trust, and respect, which is very deep, right? So there's 2 levels of the strategy and tactics that we go into. You're going to want to take both as you take this into consideration. So we're moving now. We have the nascent vision. We have some ideas about action. Remember, we're skipping checking for reality because a lot of the time that happens in the moment. So just to reiterate the 4th key point of our session, again, it's on us, right? You must take reactive action when the reality of your culture is not meeting your vision, and particularly when there are breaches in the core values. If we don't take action, we lose credibility as the cultural leaders of our school. Everybody sees a breach of culture. If they see us in action, it actually sends a very, very clear message that we don't think it's important to uphold that culture at our school. So the onus is on us to be the first line of response when there is a breach, and it will trickle down. Remember, that culture is that group mindset. People will act individually in the moment to uphold the values if they see us doing it as well, and that's the group mindset. The way that we're going to approach this, you've seen them before, so don't think that they're popping out of nowhere. But if you can open up your school director handbook to page 73, we're going to revisit these key interaction principles. And again, it's on page 73. It's probably easier to read from your book than the slide, but if you can see the slide. And as you open up to page 73, again, like I said, you've seen these before in your pre-work for LC1, and this is not the last time that you're going to see them. But these principles fit here because they're very, very helpful in thinking about reacting to a situation in the moment. And we always start in the beginning with adapt, no matter what the situation is. And you think to yourself, if you look at the definition of adapt, there's really two big things. What are the key issues at play here? And what are the desired outcomes? What do I want to change, or what do I want to have happen when I engage in a conversation? No matter what situation you're in, it's sort of a way that we think. So no matter what, you're going to adapt to the situation. And these are going to be based on the specific actions that you see. If you overhear a core member, a staff member, anybody that's at your school site blaming someone else for something that went wrong in their classroom, the adapting part, the key issue here is that there is a breach of culture, right? The action that's leading to this is blaming. And I think the key issues that are at play are that there's not that relentless pursuit of results. There may be a respect and humility issue, right? So you adapt to what's actually going on. This is all really inside of your head as well, and I do want to put a note out there as well before we move into the actual framework. Not all the time in the moment are you going to want to respond to a breaching culture. A lot of the times your emotions rise, your heart rate starts beating. That probably isn't the best time to respond to a breach. I really think emotions sort of trump logical thinking a lot of the times. However, if you need to take 10 minutes or 15 minutes or a time to think about what these desired outcomes are going to be, I still think it's important to touch base in the moment and say, hey, I would really like to talk about this. I just need to take 10 minutes to make sure that I have an understanding of what actually happened. Take that time, bring your blood pressure back down, but definitely you need to address a breach in culture. So you've adapted. I actually think this one should have an arrow on it as the first place that we go. So after you've adapted, you know the key issues, you know the desired outcomes, you know the specific actions that were the breach of culture. You always want to, one of the highly effective habits, right? Seek first to understand, then be understood. You don't want to walk into this potentially difficult conversation having made an assumption about what you saw, right? So asking questions, saying, this is what I saw happen. It seems to me that this is a breach in culture. Is there any context that you can give? Inquiring to get that perspective from them so that you have even more of a full understanding of the situation. And then, especially when there's a breach in culture, we're going to focus on these two, helping and challenging. And just a note about empathizing. It can be tricky. If they are frustrated and they blame somebody, it would be maybe a step backwards to say, I know exactly how you feel about that, right? You don't want to validate an action that's a breach of culture. So historically, these are the two that actually push core members to staff members, anyone really, to change their way of thinking. So moving to helping and challenging and putting in place. So if you're helping them see an alternative solution, or helping them see a different way of the issue that took place, or challenging them to take a different course of action next time, or right now in the moment. So that's sort of the framework for how we think about responding to breaches in culture. This could happen at the one-on-one level, it could happen at a group level, it could happen at a whole school level if it needs to be addressed. But the big point is, we need to address it. So what we're going to do now is actually practice this reactive action when there's a breach in culture. We are going to adapt together to a context, or excuse me, to a scenario, and then we'll role play in partners as a school director and a core member how this could play out. I'm going to ask you to turn to the back side of handout 1 in box 7. There is a scenario there that is a breach of culture. As I have a volunteer read, I would love for you to be thinking about adapting. What are the key issues? What are the desired outcomes? What specific actions are you seeing? Can I have someone from the Phoenix team volunteer to set us up for this by reading the context?